of my live stream. It's called "My Journey to the Trinity," and I just got to go change my privacy issues here to make sure that I got it on public so everybody who wants to can see us. I'm continuing a subject that I started yesterday, just because the sound was so bad yesterday, and I just want to do it over again so that you guys can see what I was talking about. I have this. It's about the subject of Malakat al-Yamin. Malakat al-Yamin. Now, there's a couple of verses in the Quran. There's many verses in the Quran. I believe it's 16 verses in the Quran that talks about this group of women called Malakat al-Yamin. And it's Malakat al-Yamin means those that your right hand possesses. And maybe we could see here's the verse, and let me go ahead and read it to you. It says, وَإِن خُفْتُمْ إِلَّا تَقْسِطُوا فِي الْيَتَامَى. If you feel that you won't deal justly with the orphan girls, فَإِنْكَحُوا مَا طَابَ لَكُمْ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ مثنى وثلاثة وأربعة فإن خفتم إن لا تعدلون فواحدة أو ما ملكت أيمانكم. So let me read to you that in English, and the English translation isn't really fair, but it says, "And if you fear that you will not deal justly with the orphan girls, then marry." Now, the word in Arabic is not marry. The word in Arabic is inkahu, which means to have sex with. Those that please you. Have sex with those women who please you, 2 or 3 or 4. But if you fear that you will not be just, then marry just one, or those that your right hand possesses. So, what it's saying here is you can have uh, you can have sex with these women that you marry. Well, it doesn't really say marry here. In the Arabic, it doesn't say marry. It says inkahu, which is the F word in Arabic. And it's chapter 4, verse 3. If you want to look it up, it's chapter 4, verse 3. And I know I'm going to get in trouble for this, but this is what's written in the Quran. Look what it says. Are women allowed to have 4 men? Uh, are women allowed to have 4 men? And so you just got to ask yourself, why is this verse in the Quran? Now, there's another verse too. There's many verses that talk about this group of women called, they're called Malakat al-Yamin, which means literally slaves. These are slave girls. And, if you think that, slavery, Muhammad wasn't a slave owner, he was a slave owner. Muhammad owned 40 slaves. I can give you their names if you want. And so, because I know there's this big thing there's this big thing that was, especially in the African American community, about how, Islam is the religion of the black man, but Muhammad owned black slaves. He used to sell them. And so, this idea that he was this great hero of the black man is untrue. And anyway, but I just want to show you. Yesterday I did a program where I showed you a particular video of a woman named Basma Wahba. Now, this video is about 15 years old. It's a program that was about 15, but it is just so amazing because this Muslim woman, she's Muslim, wearing a hijab, is confronting 2 of the biggest sheikhs in Egypt. Uh, Very respected, Jamal Qutb و and Mabrouk Atiyah. two of the biggest sheikhs at that time in Egypt, very famous, very well known on TV, and she's confronting them because of this subject about Malakat al Yamin, sex slaves, slave girls. Is this something that still exists today? I hope that you will watch this and see what she says, just to see. Uh, okay, let me go ahead and put this on here. I hope that I can play this.
سوق الجواري والعبيد. كان القانون وقتها من وقت عدى بعيد. كان البشر للبشر سلعة وتتهادى، والمرأة كانت بتتوزع بين كل فرش وإيد. تقف في سوق الجواري تلقى اللي بينادي يلا تعالى للسمر أو للشقر أو للبيض.
قسم عدل، هذه لي وهذه لسيدنا وهذه لسيدي حسان. من علمك هذه القسمة الجائرة؟ قسم أنت عدل. هذه لك للصبوح وهذه لك للظهيرة وهذه لك بين الصبوح والظهيرة وهذه لك لليل الطويل. من علمك كل هذه الحكمة يا أسود؟ اللطمة التي دوت على وجه حنظلة.
وجالنا بعديها دينا اللي بياخي الخلق زي صوابع الايد. حتى نظام العالم كله اتغير، فلا اذلال ولا اكراه ولا تهديد. دلوقتي ظهر عالم من الازهر بيقول لنا رأي تاني جديد، بيقول لنا مش حرام لو خدت شغالة بتشتغل عندكم جارية بوضع الايد. وطبعا كل الرجال قالوا ده يوم العيد، وكل زوجة بعتت شغالتها بعيد. احنا قلنا يلا نسأل، والسؤال بيفيد، ونواجه العلماء والكل يبقى سعيد.
Okay, I wanted to show you that video that was on television in the Middle East. And I just want to tell you a little bit about the video that you saw at the beginning where the men, this is like in the time of Muhammad, after one of their battles, they would take the women and they would be sex slaves. And I know that you hear on CNN that they didn't allow that. They absolutely did allow it. And Muhammad, and this is one thing that this woman's program is about. Did they allow this? And the Quran allows it. This verse of the Quran, let me just read it to you again, in Arabic, فانكحوا ما طاب لكم من نساء مثنى وثلاث وأربعة فإن خفتم إلى تعدلوهم فوحدة أو ما ملكت أيمانكم. And if you fear that you will not deal justly with the orphan girls, then marry those that please you of other women, 2 or 3 or 4. But if you fear that you will not be just, then just marry one, or those that your right hand possesses. Now, those your right hand possesses means the slave girls, means the slaves. This is in the Quran, chapter 4, verse 3, or chapter 4, verse 24. One thing that you always hear about Islam is that, one of the points of pride is that, that the Quran has a surah, a chapter called Surah An-Nisa, surah, the surah of the women. But if you see what's in it, you just want to say, no, thanks. I don't think I want this surah. I don't think we want it because of what it says. For one, it says that you can beat your wife in verse 34. It says that you can have 3 or 4 wives in verse 3. And it says that you can have sex with your slave girls in verse 3 and verse 24. So, do you want this surah? Is it a real assistance to women? Is it promote women's rights? This is chapter 4, Surah An-Nisa, verse 3, verse 24, verse 34. And so let me just show you, she brought the most respectable sheikhs in Egypt. I mean, these are the top guys of Al-Azhar University. And this is what they had to say. Listen to what he says.
واحد يقول اشتريت
طب ايه
جبتها. الصح حضرتك ربنا بيقول إلا على أزواجهم أو ما ملكت أيمانهم فإنهم غير ملومين. إذا وجد ما ملكت الأيمان بشروطه بقانونه بوقته لا يمنع المسلم من تعاطيه. لكن هل الإسلام بيفرض على المجاهدين وعلى المسلمين وعلى المشايخ وعلى الأزهر يفتح الصبح يقول فين ما ملكت الأيمان؟ أنت
لا احنا ما قلناش بيفرض. مين اللي قال بيفرض؟
ما انت بتقولي اهو موجود ولا مش
قلنا
موجود؟
بيسمح. دلالة الألفاظ مهمة.
يعني
Okay, this is very important, okay, because this lady, she asked the sheikh, she says that in the West, Americans and everybody's talking about it, saying that Muslims are so backwards because they allow slavery of these girls. And she's asking, is this allowed? And you know what the sheikh says? This is the top, most respectable sheikh in the Middle East. And he says, look, he says Muslims have to pray. They have to pray. They have to fast. They have to do the Hajj. But the Quran does not force them to have slave girls. And then the girl says, the interviewer says, I didn't say it forces. I just said, does it allow? And this guy is saying it does allow. He says, if a man if all the conditions are right, then yeah, sure. What's wrong with that? You know. And so, anyway, let's listen to another clip. You know, I just want to show you guys. This was very big in the Middle East. It caused an earthquake in the Middle East. I know that you're not going to hear about it here in the West, and that's why I'm kind of trying to show you, and trying to show you also about the Muslim women who are saying, wait a minute, all these guys are saying all these things about us. And it's like, and she really confronted him, really pushed him into a corner, forced him to answer. And so that's why I want to show you some of these video clips. She is amazing. And I'll tell you what happened at the end. At the end, she just took off the hijab. You know, you don't see it here on the video, but she stopped wearing the hijab after this because of the insufficiency of the responses that these guys gave to her. So yeah, they danced around, but I tell you what though, she kept after them and she wouldn't let go, man. So let me show you what she says here at this part.
والغريب يا جماعة ان بعض العلماء بيقولوا انه مفيش نص بيحرم هذا الموضوع. ايه هو الموضوع ده؟ هو موضوع ما ملكت ايمانكم. يعني حالة الرق في الاسلام. هل هناك رق في الاسلام؟ ربنا سبحانه وتعالى بيقول الا على ازواجهم او ما ملكت ايمانهم فانهم غير ملومين. فهل هناك مثل هذه الحالات الى اليوم؟ هذا هو السؤال الذي نتقدم به الآن إلى فضيلة الشيخ العلامة جمال قطب. اتفضل يا مولانا.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. أريد أن يميز إخواتنا المشاهدين والمشاهدات بين قضية الإسلام بيقول لازم تعملوها، وقضية الإسلام بيقول لما تقابلوها تحلوها ازاي. يعني الإسلام لا يفرض أن يكون في الدنيا رقيق ولا يحب ذلك، وفتح الأبواب رغم أنف الحضارات من قبلنا لتصفية الرقيق. اللي حالف يمين يحرر رقبة، اللي عايز يجي يعمل ثواب يعمل رقبة، فك رقبة. لكن إذا وجد الرقيق رغم أنفنا نسيبه في الشارع يضل ويضيع ويعمل فضايح لنفسه ولغيره ويضيع نفسه ضيع أجيال إذا وجد.
Okay. I just wanted to explain to you what happened there. She's saying, you know, one thing that's happening is that people around the world are saying that Islam allows slavery, and so she's asking this. She says, I'm going to ask the sheikh, is this something that is still in Islam today? Is this something that is in Islam today? And so she asks the sheikh, And she says, you know, is this something that's allowed today? And the sheikh says, he says, well, Islam doesn't force anybody, to have a slave. It doesn't force anybody to have these girls as slaves. And then he goes on to this long thing about how that Islam would like that there not be any slavery, and that but that the Quran does say this. And so you know, you just gotta, you know, the reason I'm playing the Arabic is because I'm hoping that the Arabs are going to watch this. The Arabs are going to watch this, and then decide, you know, because you know the problem with this, is that it's in the Quran. The problem is that this is in the Quran. I'll show it to you again, and I hope you go read it. I hope you go read it. I hope you go read it. Sinead O'Connor. I hope you go read it, Sinead O'Connor. Let me read it to you again. It says, and if you fear that you will not deal justly with the orphan girls, then istankih, you know, go have sex with those that please you of women, 2 or 3 or 4. But if you fear that you will not be just, then marry only one, or those that your right hand possesses. So this is in the Quran. This is not just hadith. It's not just some old hidden book. This is the Quran itself. It says it. Chapter 4, verse 3, chapter 4, verse 24, chapter 4, verse 34. Go read Surah An-Nisa. So let's listen to what he says in this passage.
يعني لو جالك واحد قال انا اشتريت واحده
اقول له حرام، مين اللي
بتقول له
معايا؟
العقد صحيح ولا غير
اقول له
صحيح؟
اشتريتها منين؟
مش مهم،
هو ايه
مش
اللي
عايز يقول لك.
هو ده كلام؟
اه.
يعني حد يجيب لي حاجه بنجيب الدكتور يقول اشتريتها وهو سرقها؟ هو في حد
مش
بيبيع؟
انت بتقول
هو في سوق بيع
يا
دلوقتي؟
شيخ جمال،
ايوه.
مش انت بتقول انه الشرع دلوقتي مازال فيما ملكت ايمانكم؟
لازم الناس تفهم.
لو واحد قال لك انا اشتريت بقره،
انا هأثر عليك.
بتقول له اشتريتها منين؟
Okay, this is it is pretty devastating. She asks him, she says, okay, I want to know the law, the Islamic law. She said, shara, you know, the Islamic law. She says, I want to know if a guy comes to you, Sheikh, and says to you, I bought a woman. And you think, oh, that's crazy. They don't do that anymore. Remember what happened in Iraq? Remember how ISIS was selling women? Just go read the New York Times about the slave markets in Iraq. And I know you're going to say, wait a minute, that's not true Islam. You want me to read it to you again? You want me to read it to you again? If you think this is not real Islam, then let me just read it to you again, what it says. Because it says, in Arabic, it says, فَإِنْكَحُوا مَا طَابَ لَكُمْ من نساء مثنى ثلاث وأربعة فإن خفتم لا تعادلوا فواحدة أو ما ملكت أيمانكم. Whenever you bring that word ملكت أيمانكم, the possessions of your right hand, you're talking about slave girls. Whenever he says ملكت اليمين, which is about, I believe, 16 times in the Quran, you're talking about slaves. So you say, wait a minute, that wasn't really Islam, what ISIS was doing. It's in the Quran. It's in the Quran. Chapter 4, verse 3, chapter 4, verse 24, chapter 4, verse 34. Women, go read these. See if you want this for your daughter. See if this is acceptable to you. Okay? And so let's go ahead and look. Let's go ahead and look at this next passage. I mean, this next clip. So.
ما قلت لما امريكا تعتدي كل الجيش اللي يقع عندنا اما ان يقتل لانه بقى يقاتل، واللي يتمسك اسير هيبقى من ملكة الايمان. فحكايه الحمايه اللي عايزه تعطى للقوى المعتديه هي اللي خلتهم يقلبوا الفتوى ويقولون ما لم اقل.
طيب قبل ما نتكلم في الفتوى دي لو سمحت لي، احنا محتاجين دراسه لغويه شويه.
أيوة.
هنستفيد بقى من الدكتور مبروك وهو معانا.
طبعا.
Okay, so now he was explaining something. He was asked, you know, about, you know, is this permitted? And what he said is he says it's a situation of in the case of war, and he says when all these American soldiers come to attack the Middle East, and they capture all these soldiers. Some of them they will put in prison, some they will be killed, but some of them will be taken as slaves or malakat al-yamin. And so he's saying that it's in that type of a situation where they capture these American women and they become slaves as soldiers of America who have been attacking Muslim countries. And that's what he's saying. That's what he's saying. This refers to, but of course it doesn't. It doesn't say that in the Quran. But he's saying that, trying to justify it, because there was lots of anger against America at that time, so he's trying to use that to justify what the Quran says. And let me just tell you what the Quran says one more time, because this is in the Quran, chapter 4, verse 3, chapter 4, verse 24, chapter 4, verse 34. Go read it, women. See if you want that for your daughters. انكحوا ما طاب لكم من نساء مثنى أو ثلاثة أو أربعة فإن خفتم لا تعدلوا فواحدة أو ما ملكت أيمانكم. It says, if you're afraid you're not going to be able to take care of the orphan girls, then only have sex with, with the women 2, 3, or 4. And if you can't be just with all 4, then just one wife, or what your right hand possesses, your slave girls. So you got X. So if you can't control yourself, and you can't be fair to all 4 women, just marry one. But if you can't do that, then your slave girls. You can have sex with your slave girls. Let me read it to you again. انكحوا ما طاب لكم من نساء مثنى أو ثلاثة أو أربعة فإن خفتم لا تعدلوا فواحدة أو ما ملكت أيمانكم. And so you're saying, slave girls, talking about slaves. ملكت أيمانكم means slaves. And so now we're going to get a lesson about what malakat al-yamin means. We're going to get it from one of the top sheikhs in the Middle East. This guy was one of the top sheikhs in the Middle East. He's going to give us a lesson about what malakat al-yamin means.
في الفتوى دي لو سمحت لي، احنا محتاجين دراسة لغوية شوية. هنستفيد بقى من الدكتور مبروك وهو معانا ويفهمنا ايه بقى ما ملكت ايمانكم وحالة الرق وامتى يبقى في ملكت ايمانكم ولا ما فيش. يعني لف بينا كده يا دكتور مبروك حوالين الموضوع.
اولا كلمة ملك اليمين، الكوباية دي ملك يمين والكرسي ملك يمين. كل ما يملك هو ملك يمين، ده في الاصل اللغوي. وعبر باليمين لان اليمين اقوى من الشمال، وإذا يقول لك يداه سبحانه وتعالى كلتاهما يمين.
Okay, so this guy is explaining to us when the Quran calls women malakat al-yamin, when it calls women possession of your right hand, what does that mean? She says we need a lesson. We need a lesson from this sheikh to teach us what does it mean that she's a right possession of the right hand. And you know what the sheikh says? He says, Malakat al-Yamin is anything you own, like this cup. See this cup right here? This is Malakat al-Yamin because I own it. And then he also says, and the chair, this is on the chair right here. There's a chair. I'm sitting on a chair. I own the chair. So the woman is like this cup, Malakat al-Yamin, whatever I own. The chair, Malakat al-Yamin, it's what I own. And this is in, you guys, the problem is that this is in the Quran. Surah An-Nisa 3, Surah An-Nisa 24, Surah An-Nisa 34. Women, go read it. See if you want this for your daughters. See if this is acceptable to you for your daughters. Let me just play that one again, just because that's a pretty powerful video.
يعني لو جالك واحد قال انا اشتريت واحده ما ملكت ايمانكم،
اقول له حرامين اللي
بتقول له العقد صحيح ولا غير صحيح؟
اقول له اشتريتها منين؟
مش مهم،
هو ايه
مش
اللي
عايز يقول لك.
هو ده كلام؟
آه.
يعني حد يجيب لي حاجه من جيب الدكتور يقول اشتريتها وهو سرقها؟ هو في حد
مش
بيبيع؟
انت بتقول
هو في
يا
سوق بيع؟
Okay, I just want to tell you what she says there. It's so hard. It's so painful. She's asking, this guy is like the Pope. He's like the Mufti. He's the top guy at Al Azhar University. He's so famous. He has an answer for everything. Okay. His name is Jamal Qutb. She says to him, okay, you say that this is still allowed today. The slavery is still allowed today. She said, if a guy came to you and asked you and told you, I bought a woman, I bought a woman, I bought a woman, what would you say to him? And you know what he says? He says, I'll ask him where he bought it. I'll ask him where he bought her. I'll ask him where he bought her. That's what he says. He says, I'll ask him where he bought her. So, you know, she says, what difference does it make where he bought her? She says to him, okay, a guy comes to you and says, I bought a woman, like ISIS used to go buy the Yazidi women and the Christian women. They used to sell them for $10 over, and go just read the New York Times. They wrote about that. And so some guy comes home and says, hey, goes to tell his sheikh, hey, I bought a woman today. What do you think about that? And you know what the sheikh says? He says, I'm going to ask him where he bought her. Where he bought her. She corners these guys. She corners these guys. They're unable to answer. I'll say, please keep watching. Okay, sorry about that.
هل من حق المسلم يجيب واحد ولا يشتري واحدة بفلوسها يقول انت مالك؟ لا. لكن اذا وجد رغم انفنا ماذا نفعل معه؟ اذا واحدة فقدت الاهل والمال والعائل واصبحت بلا مصدر تعيش.
وهو اي واحدة تفقد اهلها تبقى رق؟
لا انا ما بقولش فكرة الرق. يعني حينما اراد الاسلام يقول اذا وجدت من يحتاج الى الرحمة والسكن لأنها بعيدة عن أهلها لا تعرف لهم مصدر بعيدة عن مصادرهم فأويها. هذا ما ملكت الأيمان. لكن الإسلام لا يفرض أن رجالته يفضلوا يشتروا ناس ولا يعتبروا ناس رقيق ولا يبتذلوا كرامة المرأة.
So right here, you know, what's happening here is that he's saying, you know, Islam doesn't force anybody to go have slaves, doesn't force anybody to have these girls be their slaves. Islam doesn't force anybody to do that. Okay. But he says, but if you're just walking around and you see this girl and she doesn't have family and she doesn't have anybody, what are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do? And, you know, and you see her on the street, and then Besma asks him, she says, so are you saying that any girl that you meet on the street who's homeless or something, she becomes a slave? And he says, no, that's not what I'm saying, you know? And so, you know what? You know the problem, you guys, you know, the problem is this is what Islam says. This is what Islam says. And so they are, you know, it's in chapter 4, verse 3, chapter 4, 24, chapter 4, verse 34, and they don't know what to do with it. And now now this really is going to be painful to watch this. This is one of the top sheikhs of the Muslim world. And listen to what he's saying. Listen to what she says to him. You know, she is such an amazing interviewer. It's like Oprah Winfrey in the Middle East, but you know, she's really pushing these guys to the corner, demanding an answer for the stuff that they said on TV. You see, because this sheikh is so famous, and he said something on TV, and she's going to confront him about it right now. Let me just show it to you. I know it's in Arabic, but it's because I want the Arabs to watch it. I want the Arabs to watch this.
حضرتك ظهرت في احد البرامج الفضائية وقلت يا جماعة اللي عنده شغالة في البيت
انا قلت كده.
مش مسيحية او يهودية، ايوه،
آه.
له الحق ان يتعامل معها ملك يمين.
هذا الكلام
الكلام ده حضرتك احنا سمعناه كلنا.
لا، اذا كنت اولا مع احترامي وتوقيري لك، اذا كان في تسجيل بهذا اللفظ انا ابقى رجل مخطئ، مش عيب ان انا ارجع في لو كنت، لكن هذا لم اقوله.
طب اقول لك تحديدا
بس اسمعي
مع
كلامي
جمال
لما أخلص.
عناية
هقول
في
لي
قناة الصفوة.
لما اخلص كلامي.
تحب اقول لك التاريخ كمان
انا
يا
قبلت
شيخ
الدعوه،
جمال؟
انا قبلت الدعوه للحلقه دي ومحتمل انها تثار بهذه القضيه.
ايوه.
واخد بال حضرتك؟ هذا الامر لم يصدر من فمي لا من قريب ولا من بعيد، بل على العكس. جمال عناية الاستاذ اللي هو المذيع والزميله اللي قاعده وغيرهم بيقولوا ايه؟ بيقولوا يعني اي واحد يجيب اي واحده شغاله ويتجوزها. قلت لهم حسبي الله ونعم الوكيل. ده كلام في التسجيل، لازم الناس
طب
تبقى
ايه
عارفه.
الصح طيب؟
الصح ان حضرتك الشغاله دي جايه بعقد عمل، لها كرامتها ولها. اذا شئت ان اتزوجها الاول بيني وبينها مليون حائل، لقوله تعالى ولا أمة مؤمنة خير من مشركة ولو أعجب. قدام المسلمين والمسيحيين واليهود إذا رغبوا مش هخطفهم بره، لكن ما اعرفش اتجوز واحدة ليس لها دين سماوي. ادي حاجة. القضية بقى اتعفرت ليه والكلام اتكتر فيها ليه، وبعض البرامج الاخرى قطعت الكلام وركبته ليه؟ لان انا قلت اللفظ بتاع امريكا.
Okay. What happens here is that she confronts him and she says to him, she says, you were on a TV program, a satellite TV program. And on this program, you said that if you have a woman working at your house, like a maid, and she's not Muslim, Christian, or Jewish, then you can treat her like Malakat al-Yamin. You can treat her like a possession of your right hand, or a slave. You could treat her like a slave, meaning you can have sex with her. Because you know what the Quran says? Let me read it to you again. This is what the Quran says. مَطَابَ لَكُمْ مِن نِسَاء مَثْنَى أو ثلاث أو أربعة فإن خفتم لا تعدلوا فواحدة أو ما ملكت أيمانكم. ملكت أيمانكم means slaves. So it's very clear that slavery is fine in Islam. Chapter 4, verse 3, 424, 434. Women, go read it. See if you want that for your daughter. And, chapter 4, verse 3, 424, 434. And so, anyway, this is in the Quran. This is the problem. It's in the Quran. You can't get rid of it. And so that's why these guys are getting tied up into knots. And this woman is very sincere. She's wearing the hijab. She's a strong Muslim. She wants to know the truth. And they're not able to answer her. Why? Because Islam ties people into knots with what's written in the Quran.
أنا عايز أسألك
اختاروا الوقت ده.
إذا اعتبرنا إن ما ملكت أيمانكم في منطقة المباح، كلامي صحيح؟
مش عارف برضه حضرتك تقصدي ايه.
يعني احنا عارفين الأحكام الشرعية يا إما واجب يا إما مستحب يا إما مباح يا إما مكروه يا إما محرم.
الشرع الإسلامي
فهي في منطقة إيه؟
الشرع الإسلامي يتمنى أن تكون الدنيا كلها حرة وتبقى من المحرمات. يتمنى ذلك.
لكن الواقع
إذا وجد
الواقع إيه؟
الواقع المتاح علينا عالميا، البلاد اللي ملهاش دين، اللي ملهاش حضارة،
لا أنا
اللي ملهاش
بتكلم
أخلاق.
يا شيخ جمال أنا بتكلم عن الشرع.
أنا بقول الشرع أهو. الشرع يتمنى إغلاق الباب وقال حرروا.
يتمنى شيء
أيوه.
والواقع شيء.
واقع الناس بقى مش واقع الشرع.
واقع الشرع.
لا.
واقع الشرع النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام مات والرق غير محرم. صحيح ولا غير صحيح؟
لا صحيح.
This lady, she is amazing. She says to them, she says that in Islamic law, there's things that are considered permissible, things that are considered not liked or liked, and some things that are hated, and some things that are forbidden. She says, where does slavery fit on this list, on this scale? Is it hated? Is it permitted? Is it forbidden? And the guy says, well, it's it's permitted, in the countries that are like that have no religion. And she says, no, I'm asking about the law. And the law, mutah, means it's available, it's permissible, it's permissible. So, she's cornering this guy, man, and he can't answer. He doesn't know what to say. And she said, she also asks, there's another thing that, there's one thing that's very important that she says at the very end. I'm going to play this at the end. I just want to play the last part because it's a very important thing that she says at the very end. Okay? Just want to play this again.
شرع النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام مات والرق غير محرم، صحيح ولا غير صحيح؟
صحيح.
سلام مات والرق غير محرم، صحيح ولا غير صحيح؟
صحيح.
سلام مات والرق غير محرم، صحيح ولا غير صحيح؟
صحيح.
النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام مات والرق غير محرم، صحيح ولا غير صحيح؟
صحيح.
النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام مات والرق غير محرم، صحيح ولا غير صحيح؟
صحيح.
النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام مات والرق غير محرم، صحيح ولا غير صحيح؟
صحيح.
النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام مات والرق غير محرم، صحيح ولا غير صحيح؟
صحيح.
The reason I want to play that over and over and over again for you is that she's saying to him, she says to him, Muhammad died and slavery was not forbidden. He did not forbid slavery. Is that right or not? And he says, that's right. She says, Muhammad died and slavery was not forbidden. Is that right or not? And she said, that's right. And so, let's go to Mr. Atiyah, Mr. Mabruk Atiyah, just to see his response. He's the one who helped us to understand what the meaning of the word Malakat Yamin, that it's a possession like a cup or a chair. So a woman is like a cup or a chair. And let's just see what he has to say, because he says something that really is quite it says something that really is mind-boggling, scary, but you know what? At least he's being honest. At least he's being honest about the dilemma that Muslims are in with these verses of the Quran.
انت مؤمنه ان القران ده كلام ربنا ولا زيه زي الاحاديث فيه ده ضعيف وده مردود وده موضوع؟
الاسئله
لا، اما تيجي تقريها في انا هسال مش بسمه وهبه، انا بسال استاذه بسمه كاني بسال اي واحده من المشاهدين. هسالها بس سؤال بالراحه خالص خالص. انا هقول يا جماعه
مؤمنين
لحظه واحده، لا مش كده، ما اقصدش مؤمنين بقى، احنا بنناقش مناقشه موضوعيه دلوقتي. يعني ايه مناقشه موضوعيه؟ يعني اقول للناس انت مؤمن بان القران ده كلام الله؟ يقول لي ايوه. مفيش فيه تحريف؟ هيقول لي آية الحجر إنا نحن نزلنا الذكر وإنا له لحافظون. عظيم. الدنيا كلها مطمئنة ده كلام ربنا؟ طب اقرا كده في سورة النساء، يبقى وإن خفتم ألا تقسطوا في اليتامى فانكحوا ما طاب لكم من النساء مثنى وثلاث ورباع فإن خفتم ألا تعدلوا فواحدة أو ما ملكت أيمانكم. أجي ألغيها؟ يعني هعمل لها ايه دلوقتي؟ اشطبها باستيكه؟ هل المطلوب ان عشان انا ابقى دين جميل ودافع عنه هعمل ايه في القران؟ وده السؤال الاولاني. يعني
Okay, what he's saying here, he's saying, what am I supposed to do with the Quran? The Quran says this, and he quoted exactly this verse. Let me read it to you again. مَتَابَ لَكُم مِّن نِسَاء مَثْنَى وَثَلَاثَ وَأَرْبَعَ فإن خفتم إلا تعدلون فوحدة أو ما ملكت أيمانكم. Let me read it to you in English. It says, and if you fear you'll not deal justly with the orphan girls, then it says marry in English, but that's not the word in Arabic. It's فَأَنْكَحُوا مَتَابَ لَكُمْ. Have sex with those that please you of women, 2 or 3 or 4. But if you fear that you will not be just, then only one, or those your right hand possesses, or your slaves. So this is what it says, chapter 4, verse 3, chapter 4, verse 34, chapter 4, verse 24. Go read them. And so he quotes that exactly. When he starts singing, that's what he's singing. He's singing that verse right there. And he says, what am I supposed to do with it? What am I supposed to do with it? Am I supposed to erase it from the Quran? No, you can't erase it from the Quran. It's in the Quran. It's stuck there. That's why the only solution, you can't fix it. You can leave it. You can leave it, or you embrace it and believe in it and practice it, because that's what Islam says. That's what the Quran says. Chapter 4, verse 3, 424, 434. Go read it. Okay? And then let's go ahead and watch this one.
ملكت أيمانكم دي موجودة دلوقتي؟
طبعا هتفضل ليوم القيامة، وجاهدوا في الله حق جهاده، مش هتتنسخ يوم القيامة.
Okay, she asks him, she says, does this Malakat al-Aymankum, possessions of your right hand, these slave girls, sex slave girls, she says, is this still applied today? This is what she asks him. He says, of course it does. It'll apply until the day of judgment. It'll apply until the day of judgment. That's what he said. And so, this is a, let me just go ahead and, I can go on. I got several other clips that I'd like to show you, but I think I'm just going to go to the last one, and this was Basma's conclusion. Basma is the interviewer, and this is what was her conclusion. Listen to what she says. And you guys remember, this is in the Quran. This is in the Quran. Inkahu mataba lakum. Have sex with those that please you of women, 2, 3, or 4. And if you're afraid you won't be just, then 1. Or those that your right hand possesses, or your slave girls. So this is Quran chapter 4, verse 3. So let's listen to what Basma's conclusion is, because I think she says it very well.
نختم بيه الحلقة لأنه طبعا بعد ما قدرنا الحوار اللي أنا شايفة إنه خد أبعاد ما كانتش محسوبة بالنسبة لنا كلنا. الخلاصة نقول يا جماعة ما تفتحوش المواضيع اللي عاوزة كلام كتير، لأن إحنا مش مستعدين ليها، وبالتالي ربنا يتولانا ويتولاكم. وهختم الحلقة بإني أعكس المقدمة وأقول إحنا قلنا يلا نسأل، والسؤال مش هيفيد، ونواجه العلماء والكل يبقى مش سعيد. متشكرين لعلمائنا، ونرجو منكم أن تكون هذه الحلقة جرس إنذار لما تتعرض له الدعوة الإسلامية اليوم. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
You know what she says. She says, at the start of the program, this is what she says. At the start of the program, I said, the best thing is let's ask our teachers. Let's ask our teachers and find out the answer. And she says, but now at the end of the program, I have to say the opposite. If you have a question, don't ask. Don't ask because it doesn't help. You're not going to get an answer. There's no answer. And she says we thought it would help if we ask a question. I'm telling you, I know the Quran has a verse that says don't ask. Don't ask about things that if you knew it would hurt you. The Quran says that. It's a verse in the Quran, but this is the verse. Let me read it to you. I know I'm going to mess it up in Arabic. وَإِنْ خُفْتُمْ إِلَى تَقْسَطُوا فِي الْيَتَامَى. You know, if you're afraid you're not going to treat the orphans right. فَإِنْكَحُوا. That's the F word. فَإِنْكَحُوا مَا طَابَ لَكُمْ. So, you know, the F word, those who please you of women, min nisa, mathna, or thalatha, or arba'a, 2 or 3 or 4. And if وَإِنْ خُفْتُمْ إِلَّا تَعْدِلُونَ وَحْدَةً. And if you're afraid that you can't be just with all 4, then just one. Or أَوْ مَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانَكُمْ. Or those that you possess. Like you possess your paper cup and you possess your chair, according to the Sheikh. So that's what Islam teaches. That's what Islam teaches. So, you know, it's there. There's the verse. I left it up for you so you could see it. Please. I know some of you are furious with me. You hate me. But I'm telling you, I put up the Arab because I want you to see. And you know what this lady says at the very end? You know what she says at the very end? I think I want to play it again. I want to play it again at the end, what she says at the end.
فليقوم. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
You know what she says at the end? She says, let this episode be an alarm bell for what is happening to the Muslim religion. And she took off the hijab afterwards. She couldn't stand it anymore. Anyway, I just wanted to do this. I wanted to do it a little bit. I did it yesterday, but the sound was so bad, so I want to do it again today. You guys, go watch the video. Don't be afraid of the truth. Yeah, I hope it wasn't stuck, Adam. I don't know. I did it again because yesterday was so bad, so I hope that it was okay. But I just want to say, you know, don't follow this man into eternity. Don't follow this man into eternity. I love you. I know you don't think so, but I do love you and I care about you and I want you to come to know the truth. Don't follow Muhammad into eternity. Come to Jesus. Say, Jesus, help me. Jesus, forgive me. Jesus, come into my heart. Jesus, help me. Jesus, forgive me. Jesus, come into my heart. God bless you. And